Michelle. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Mina? Thank you for having me.
I am so delighted to have you in my interview, which is really geared towards everybody, but especially teachers and parents, not so much to tell them what to do, but because you are a movement specialist, your profession is teaching people. You have this wonderful thing that you wrote on your website. You have a passion for helping people to integrate body and mind for physical and mental wellness, a whole person approach to helping people feel and perform optimally. I feel so good already. And you are trained in Pilates, do you say STOT Pilates, or do you actually spell it out?
Scott Pilates method, yes.
STOT Pilates method, the Franklin method, and you are also level 2 educator and member of the International Somatic Movement Educators and Teachers Association. In addition to actually having a career as a ballerina, correct?
I did. I'm retired now, but I did have a career as a professional ballerina. So, which has really informed a lot of what I do now. That just carries right over into teaching the way that I used to learn and helped me figure out how do I take how I learned in the ballet studio into my daily practices, into college. How can I be the best I can be in college? And how can I help others learn?
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And one of the reasons, the way you and I met was because we're both very much ambassadors of the felt sense polyvagal model that was developed by Jan Winhall based on Steve Porges's work. And so that's how we met. And I heard you say in the workshops and trainings that you would always say, excuse me while I move around. I'm still listening, but this is a way that I learn. And that really piqued my interest because I know that many students, I see them, who need to move around, and yet they're expected in schools to sit still and pay attention. And so my first question for you is, what was school like for you? That's like the high elementary school, middle school, high school, and then later on college.
Right. Yeah. Well, I managed to do okay in school, but it was always very stressful. And it felt like it always took me a little bit more effort. I could make good grades, but it took a lot of effort and it was stressful because being asked to just be still and I felt like I was just kind of stuck at a desk was a stressful feeling for me in my body. And so a lot of times to do that, I would go into sort of a freeze state or I would start falling asleep. I would get sleepy. And that would be a big struggle for me. So I would get bored. I would get very, very bored. And so that was a struggle for me. Teachers would say that, oh, she's falling asleep in class. She's not paying attention. Because if I wasn't falling asleep, I was moving around and they thought I was distracted. But if the teachers would ask me a question, I knew exactly what was going on in the class. So just because I was moving around didn't mean I was distracted. It actually was helping me to take in the information and process it better. And for me, being comfortable. So being able to switch how I'm sitting, if I can sit on the floor, if I can stand up, and just change positions every now and then is very helpful at making me feel comfortable and at ease. So my younger years of school, I did okay. I was kind of like a BC student, but it just was more of a struggle. After high school, I danced with a professional dance company, and I did with a professional dance company, Texas Ballet Theater here in Fort Worth area. And after that, I did some professional gig work with contracts. But that experience was so enriching in me developing tools for learning. Because there was something about the way that when you're in the studio, you're moving, there's music, you're asked to be a part. So you have to bring a felt sense to what you're doing to be effective and connect with the audience. So there's an emotional aspect. There's different sensory things going on. So I learned a lot of different things with that. And I didn't know how to, when I retired from dancing professional, I went to college. And I struggled a little bit my first couple semesters in school. And it took my dad telling me, Michelle, you can learn every nuance and every note in a full-length ballet with the music, the dance, not just your parts, but all of the other parts, and you know it. You can learn and do well in college. If you can do that, you can learn and do well in college. And it just kind of something stood out to me of like, okay, I just need to learn, tap into some of those things to help me learn. So what can I do? And a lot of it was just realizing I need to move. And luckily in my college classes, there was a little bit of freedom for that. Some professors would be like, oh, she's not paying attention. So they would try to catch me off guard and ask questions. And I knew it. I knew exactly how to respond. And so a lot of professors would then just leave me alone after that. But I would learn. But and some teachers I went in, I just said, hey, sometimes I got to stand up and I might walk around in the back, but I'm still paying attention. So that was generally kind of my pathway, I guess, and what school was like for me. So once I went to college, I ended up graduating magna cum laude, and I did really well with it. But I just had to allow myself the freedom to be a little different than everybody else in class.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so you're really talking about the importance of advocating for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're talking about how important it is for people to know that just because you're moving around doesn't mean that you are not paying attention, that
Right.
there is a physiological need for you to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned the word felt sense. I mentioned the word felt sense because of the program that we absolutely love and find important, that
Right.
mind-body integration, not just mind, which
Right.
is what sitting still means. Just use your mind, don't use your body, right? And so I wondered, since you are a professional and you've got the vocabulary, I watched your video of instruction and I just loved the idea that you mentioned. What was it again? It was a high heart is a happy heart.
A
With
high heart is a happy heart. Yes.
yes, with the movement. And
Yes.
so I know I'm jumping ahead because I'm just so excited to have found you. But so let's talk about, what, if you can at all, go into the felt sense of what impels the movement. Is there anything else that you can say other than I fall asleep?
Well, it's learning, I think, for all of us is very much an experiential process. The deeper we learn things, the more experiential it was, right? You can read a story from someone else, but when you experienced it and did it, it becomes yours, right? It's a memory, it's a learning. So the power of that, I think, is what really helps me to learn and helps me to teach other people. So your felt sense is your experience of what's happening in any moment, really.
You're talking
Right?
about the embodied experience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that your
Because
body
of the
moves.
integration of all the pieces, right?
Yes.
It's the physical sensations, it's our thoughts, feelings, our memories.
Yes.
All of those pieces coming together is the felt sense. And I feel like that the more embodied we can be in the felt sense, the more we can be in our experience and learn.
Correct.
If we're not embodied, if we don't understand what that felt sense is, then it's definitely very hard to learn something new.
Because of, it could be that physically, if you don't move, you feel uncomfortable. Maybe you can't say why you feel uncomfortable, but
Right.
you feel uncomfortable. And that sense of discomfort gets in the way of being able to pay attention,
Right.
to process, to really learn in an embodied way. Plus, there is also the potential risk of getting somebody upset or labeling you
Right.
or thinking that you are less than capable.
Right.
And for our young children, I
Yeah.
think I think we just need to get used to the fact that motion is just part of life.
Right.
And
And we're designed to move. We're designed to move. And,
yes,
going back to, if we think about nervous system states and other things,
what do you
I,
mean? Can you explain? I know what you mean, but can you explain
well,
that?
our nervous system states like our fight or flight, people are very familiar with fight and flight, or rest relaxation. Within polyvagal theory, it does give us 3 different main states and how we respond and move through them. So for me, I grew up in a family home. There was family members that had substance abuse issues and undiagnosed mental health issues for a long time. And so my body was very much just living in fight and flight mode. And movement for me was my way of coping.
Yeah.
And I found that luckily I found it at an early age and channeled it into either gymnastics or dance. But there was many situations, I think, at home where if I needed to just be still and just be quiet and just act perfectly so that things were much more smooth and calm and comfortable at home. But it was a stressful state. It was a very, very stressful state. And so it wasn't for me internally, I wasn't going to a comfortable place, even though it looked like it on the outside. I was going into a shutdown, or in polyvagal theory, we call it dorsal, but it's more of a shutdown kind of collapse mode. And so for me, if I was in school and I had those expectations again of like, just sit there and be still, or you're going to be in trouble, or you need to be perfect, and all these expectations on me, I would just go back to that shutdown place, which was either fall asleep or I'm here physically present, but my brain is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so then I wouldn't be learning. But just the small, subtle things of being able to move around a little bit and know it's okay for me to get up and walk around if I need to.
Yes.
Those things kept me feeling comfortable. In polyvagal theory, that's our ventral state, which our nervous system and our brain state is actually more optimal for learning in that place. So for me, being able to move just a little bit even very much brings me and keeps me into that ventral place, and I can learn better.
And be connected too.
And be connected, which is the hugest thing.
Which is, we need to be connected. Teamwork is the name of the game.
Yep.
And also, when we feel judged, evaluated in a negative way, even a tiny frown, we learn in polyvagal theory that your facial expressions, they reveal your emotions more than you think. And if you're not used to looking at your facial expression, then the students see your disapproval, and that doesn't make them feel safe. Yeah. And so they go into disconnection maybe, and hiding, as opposed to connection, being valued. And so if we are aware why students need to move around, then we are sending cues of safety. And those cues of safety really help students feel comfortable, okay about themselves, feel valued, and help them learn, which is really the objective here.
Right.
So my question to you then is that, could you share some of the things that you had to learn for yourself, piece together, so that you graduated from college summa cum laude?
Magna cum laude. So
Magna
cum laude.
laude.
So not quite summa. Yeah, some of the things that I learned, interestingly enough, music. I would use music a lot. And part of that comes from I had a musical and a dance background. But many people know you hear a song and it triggers memory. It brings back it can bring back an emotional state. It can bring back memories and thoughts. And so when I would study for an exam with some difficult material, I would listen to the same song, usually classical music, but I would put on the same song. I would listen to it while I was studying. And then right before the exam, I would listen to that song again, just to kind of, and it seemed like it did help. It kind of would like bring the information to my forefront of my brain. So that's something that was just kind of interesting to me. Plus, music can help calm us and shift our nervous system state. So that was a very, very helpful thing for me. So when I would sometimes in school, we were told, don't listen to music, you can't have headphones, things like that. But I would kind of hide it sometimes anyways, and just have like an earphone in one ear and listen to something that was calming for me while I would study. So that's more of a sensory thing. That's not necessarily movement, but it helped in the same way as me moving. It had the same calming effect.
Yes.
So that's something that was very helpful for me. I know it's very old school, but I actually still use note cards.
Me too.
Because it's physical. I can move, I can look at it, I can write. So it's sensory, it's a full experience, and I can use different colors. And if I'm going to be in class and I know that I need to move and I'm probably going to be using a fidget toy, why not my fidgeting be something that is maybe even going to help me learn even more by I'm writing it on a note card and I'm moving my note cards around to help me see how concepts interact with each other.
Yes.
Right? That's something that I started doing. And I even still do this. If I have to write something and I do my outline, I don't type an outline. I write my basic bullet points on note cards, and then I can move them around. I can know what goes with what.
Yes.
And I can easily move it around, but I can see it.
Yes.
And I can move, I'm touching, it takes in all of those sensory pieces. So I know that there's different creative ways of doing that. Some people use boards where they have Post-it notes.
Yes.
I put it up on, there's different like dream boards, people do different things like that.
Yes.
But those are some basic things that I would do. And also, I would take movement breaks like every hour. If I was studying, I would get up and I would move. I would switch positions. Maybe I would sit down on the floor with my textbook in front of me.
Yeah.
And just all, what else would I do for college? I'm trying to think. So there was one other thing. Just going for a walk. So my study groups, I would find a friend that I could go for a walk with, and we would study while we were walking. We would ask questions to each other. But now, so those are some things that I learned then, but now I realize in my teaching with my clients, we use movement. If somebody comes in and they're very much in like a collapsed state, one of the first things I might do with them is the high heart is a happy heart. And we're just, and we don't even have to say that, but it might be, let's raise our arms to the sky and we're going to open that up. Because the power of changing your posture can change our physiology and change our mood state. I was mentioning to Nina before, Amy Cuddy wrote a book on that. It's Cuddy, and she also has an amazing TED Talk about posture and some of the research with that. So just changing the posture from sitting is kind of a collapsed, I don't have any power, my brain might be more relaxed, to, hey, everybody, let's take a quick stand up break. Stand up, stretch, reach your arms overhead. Let's just take a quick moment. It could be like 1 minute, because simply standing is a little bit more of a power position and can shift what's going on in the brain and help open it up to learn. So those are just little things I would do. And in college, sometimes my professors thought I wouldn't be paying attention, and you'd always have the professor that would call me out for questions to see what I was doing. And I always knew the answer because I was very on top of what they were talking about. I was just moving around.
Bravo, bravo. And I just came across this brilliant concept. Have you ever considered that emotion could be viewed as emotions in motion?
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that wonderful that we can actually change or tweak our emotions through movement? And the word is suggesting that emotion. If you
Yeah.
want to be regulated, just use motion for your emotions.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that because that's really now what I do. So I was previously talking about in college and little things I discovered for myself, but now what I do every day with my clients is what you're talking about. I can tell when they come in what their mood state is. And if people are coming in to whatever their physical goals are, could be. So it could be they want to get out of chronic pain. They want to manage autoimmune symptoms and movement. They realize that movement and the right kind helps. Or they're just trying to get stronger and do better at their professional sport. All of those things, when they come into my studio, involves learning. They're learning a new movement pattern. So every day they're learning a new movement pattern when they come in with me, or we're improving a movement pattern. And their emotional state matters. If that emotional state, it doesn't matter how many times we try to strengthen their back muscles to get them out of this posture. If their emotional state isn't changing, they're going to just keep coming back in like this.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting. So getting to through movement can help change the movement state a little bit.
Yes.
But then there's a little piece of awareness for them too.
Yes.
So for me to help them, okay, we moved, noticing their felt sense when they came in. So they notice, oh, I am feeling a little down or sad, whatever it is that came with that posture. If they notice it, and then when they're leaving after we've moved, I always have them notice, what is your felt sense now? Lay down that neural pathway. They notice it. They notice it's a change.
Yeah.
And they realize, oh, I can actually be here. I can be in this emotional state and this posture.
Yeah.
And this physical space.
Yeah.
So it's like laying down that pathway up here and into the body so they can be there longer, so they can learn it, have the experience, and be there with it.
Yes. You're saying something that is absolutely essential that we've learned through the felt sense polyvagal model and the modality that Jan emphasizes, which is the focusing and that focusing on your body, because your memories, physical sensations, feelings, emotions are all nonverbal expressions of what your body has recorded since before the time you were even born, like in utero, and then before you learned language. So sometimes I think what happens is that these emotions can get so intense and people don't know how to deal with it.
Right. I mean, they don't know what's going on inside them. And
they don't
that
know what
causes more stress.
That causes more stress. Oh, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And they have other people's reactions to them on top of that. And so I love the term you used earlier. You said, my father told me you can learn to learn, which is what my website is all about. We can learn to learn. And the way I am really hoping that we can encourage people to use their body, their felt sense, to be aware of their felt sense, and then to use their cognitive function in order to maybe say, oh, that's what it feels like with words, with maybe even sound, with whatever, so that
Right.
when they feel that, they identified, oh, it's that again.
Right.
It's that place that I go to. I'm familiar with it and I know how to handle it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in many ways, we need maybe a playlist, a
Mhm.
ventral playlist. Maybe we need to make a list of things that make us feel good, really good, without regrets later. And so, so
What's interesting, well, finish your thoughts.
no, go
Sorry.
ahead. I finished
Oh,
my,
I
my
was just
next,
going to say what
my
I,
next question was going to be, since I know you have a beautiful little daughter.
oh, that's where I was going, was thinking about her. So we're
There
on
we
the
go.
same.
There we go. Let's go there.
Well, I was just thinking that I think it's, in finding the felt sense, it's seems to me like it's almost easier for younger kids. It's like we train ourselves out of it as we become adults, or through, because of trauma or different things that happen to us, we kind of like split off from the felt sense. But with kids, it's like it's so simple for them. My daughter, we have a book by Dan Siegel. Uh, it's recent. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's wonderful. And it talks about the different states as colors. And so she checks in the book, the girl has a pause button. So she hits her pause button when there's a situation or an emotion. And then she has an okay monitor, and it's either green, I'm all good, yellow, I'm almost not okay, and red, I'm really not okay. My 3-year-old gets that concept. She'll tell me all the time, Mom, I'm starting to be yellow, or Daddy got red at me, and we're all in the green right now. And and with her, even I'll ask her, okay, well, how did it feel when you are in green? And for her, everything is butterflies. So she has happy butterflies up here. And there'll be different colors. It depends on the day and time that I ask her what her green happy butterflies are. But when she goes yellow, her butterflies will be more here, and they're kind of like really moving around, she says. And then her red, she just says they're red butterflies and they're angry. But she knows that's a felt sense. She can feel, okay, I have a physical sensation. I have some sort of emotion. She doesn't necessarily know all of the words and the complexities of all of it, but she's in her body. And when she tells me, she might be in the red, and by the time she's done telling me I'm in the red and here's what my butterflies feel like, and my body felt a little shaky, she's not in the red anymore. She noticed, because she went and paused and she noticed her body. And then she kind of says, you know what? I feel better. I'm back in the green. And sometimes that's all it took, was noticing and being in the body. And for adults too,
and communicating and sharing it with a safe
yes,
person,
yes,
being heard, being seen, and
yeah,
being supported. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I feel like we overcomplicate things as
Yes.
adults.
Well, not only that, but I think, in the United States and Europe, having emotions
Mhm.
is, you can't really express your emotions. You're discredited if you're emotional.
Right.
And boys are not supposed to feel, not supposed to be vulnerable. They can't express it anyway. For boys to cry, they, that just puts them
Right.
at risk for being judged.
Right.
So
Yeah.
sense. So in that sense, I think that we need to accept that emotions, I mean, this is not new. This is very old science, that emotions are really driving our health, and we need to pay attention to them. And so very young children, and not just young children, it needs to be a spiraling curriculum really in schools for those individuals and teachers who never really were able to apply what it means to take care of our emotions and feel regulated again,
Right.
so that we create a safe environment for everybody. Are
Yeah.
there any other comments you would like to make?
Well, just one last little thing. One tool that I did learn for myself, because I do like to move and, it's not always appropriate to move around so much, is using my imagination. And, some people call it fancy mental simulation of movement, but just using my imagination and imagining, like, okay, if I'm trying to learn a concept, how does that feel if I'm moving within that concept or if it's around me? And just using my imagination with it is so very helpful. Yeah. And, even just like I have all these different little sensory toys, but I'll hand these to people and use them, just like use them to represent different things. Like right now, I'm actually teaching different classes about the movement of the organs, but my young dancers that come in, they really get the concept of how everything in the body is connected.
That's right.
That's right. And I don't have to tell them it's a tensegrity toy and it's, all these sciencey words. Just look, everything in the body is connected. You move your head and the whole structure changes. Yes. And they get it, and let them touch and feel it.
Yes.
But once they see it, then I'm like, now put that in your imagination. And we just kind of I'm like, obviously you can't, when they go to ballet class, for example, you can't pull this out and be like, okay, let me do this. And now I'm going to dance, because there's the structure and the rules of dance class.
Yes.
But they have the imagination of it.
Yes.
So it's like the muscle they have the memory, but then can you imagine if this was in your body and now you're lifting your arm, and how did that change the whole structure below?
Beautiful.
And just like really like settling into the imagination of it. So really teaching them, use their imagination. Kids already have that.
Yes.
So use it. How do we use the imagination for learning?
Yes.
Other things I borrow from my daughter's toys that yes. to help with like,
that's a dog, by the way. Is that a dog with the tail? You're pulling
it's a caterpillar. Well, it's called a caterpillar. It's a music toy. Yes. But sensory, the color, all of those things help bring our system a little bit more calm for most people. And I'm teaching in the body. If people are maybe not feeling safe in their body to be there and experience movement, I can take them out of that a little bit, find space to think, oh, this is my spine, and this is how she wants me to find some movement in it.
I love that toy. I've got to get one.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's kind of fun. But the imagination, though, but I guess that's my point, is that there's ways where we can like find and use the imagination, so that you don't always have to be moving, but it can feel like it and have that same experience in the brain. But yeah,
I have to say that after watching your recording of one of your classes, I was like, I can't believe that I never learned about my body in this way. And so in the same way, I really feel that our interview, our conversation, I hope that it opens up, frees up people to think about movement, the connection between emotion, behavior, and movement, the necessity for movement and connection with each other for well-being, for learning, for enhancing our ability to be lifelong learners, really.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
And could people contact you? I know I'm going to put your website link in the notes.
Yes.
Is there any other way?
Yes, absolutely. The email is probably the easiest for me. And it's just michelle@onpointpilatesstudio.com. Okay. And we can probably put that in with the link. So
I will do that. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.